Crossbred cow-calf parrot exhibited by Amy Chilcote. We have a yearling Holstein heifer. Oh, sorry, that one's a scratch. We have a Holstein 2 years and older exhibited by Aspen Courtney. We brought them all into the ring at the same time. We're going to place them in their individual classes, and then we will place them overall.
placement is okay. You have a good angle from hook to pin. She's got good length of body. I'd like to blow out her chest more a little bit and have a more implication, a little bit more capacity. She might be very sweet, especially with some of those brown blue traits that quite get as heavily reflected in the female. They tend to have a little bit more ruggedness, and we're seeing a little bit more nervous frailty, and that's probably what is reflected in the female. Where I do kind of pick apart your female is going to be her udder structure. I would like to see more capacity. I'd like to see better production. I'd like to see more of that front of that udder a little bit, that core udder attachment. I'm not too crazy fond of you see this udder from the side kind of slopes down. She gets a little bit heavy on the front end of the udder. Teeth placement is pretty good. You can see the front ones tend to spread out a little bit more than the back. You kind of want them more perfectly aligned to the shaped teeth. Teeth size, teeth length is excellent. There's any motion in the female. Neat legs are pretty strong on her. She likes to be moved out pretty well. The hoof trimming would do a world of good for this female since she's a little bit long in the toes. But she's got excellent heel strength. She's probably the only good 2 inches taken off the front of this feet.
Congratulations to Amy Shilko, a blue ribbon with her crossbred cow, a purple ribbon with her crossbred heifer under 1 year, and a purple ribbon with her cow-calf pair. Congratulations to Aspen Courtney, a purple ribbon on her Holstein female, 2 years and older. Aspen Courtney received Grand Champion Dairy Cow, and Amy Shilco's cow-calf pair were the reserve champions. We now have our dairy showmen in the ring. We have a single entry in junior showmanship, Aspen Courtney, and Aspen and Amy will then also be competing in senior showmanship. So the judge is judging junior and senior simultaneously.
I think that's all they're hoping is to get more volume if possible.
Well, if we give it too much volume,
It'll skrill at us.
it'll overload the system.
Okay.
If we use too much, so.
I bought her from my heifer. She was born in early April. She's about 50-50 maybe. As they breed there. Are you ready?
whoever comes up next can bring them just the two-way radio. I've already been up once. So.
For a senior, I'd like your knowledge to be a little greater when it comes to dairy specific questions. Definitely related to milk quality and dairy production. So that's important here. You are a more confident showman in the ring, and so I think that's what's going to end up taking it today. It's just pure maturity. So I want to see you back next year, though. All right, that's our goal now. Purples for both. And Aspen, you'll be first place junior and second place senior. Okay. Okay. All right. We got some trophies and other stuff, and I'll get to ya. Okay. Perfect. Pass it. You guys out.
All right, so the Hereford heifer under 1 year, Callie Rummel, please be on deck. Then following that, we'll have Hereford heifer over 1 year and under 2 years, Madison Evelo, Megan Evelo, Callie Rummel, and Michael Rummel.
We certainly appreciate the young man coming out here with our first bull calf entry, first bull entry. Young calf clearly is just learning the ropes, so he's going to have a time to figure out how to lead and do those things with life, right? But what we can determine, here's a calf who's sound in his structure, he's good in terms of his joints, we'd anticipate some skeletal durability long term, so those are the things we can clearly see even at a pretty young age, so we appreciate the soundness and the longevity built into this. Give the young man a nice hand, please.
Oh, so let's do this. Like the way we get it, like in
unless I tell you they're red.
And ladies will make me just a little right in the middle, okay?
Young lady brings us a nice, bold, big body heifer calf here to fire up the female division. Again, another one, given her mating, given genetically how she's put together, doesn't surprise you that she's pretty sound, she's pretty good jointed, but the pieces that you really admire is the center body shape, really bodes well for being that longevity-minded cow prospect down the road. Again, that's a good swath from cow durability and those aspects. So a nice female here to start the heifers. Would you go ahead and give the young lady a nice hand, please?
Okay, our next class will be Hereford heifer 1 year and under 2 years, Madison Evelo, Megan Evelo, Callie Rummel, and Michael Rummel. And if you do win your class, you will stay around. You'll be coming back for overall Hereford female.
There's someone there. She's there.
I need to open the gate, though. You will? straight to him, go side by side, okay?
Hey, Chris, hold up the back.
I'll help you with both gates here for a minute. I got another guy down right here.
She's in it. She's in it. They're having problems. She was holding the steer.
You'll get a place. You'll get a place. No. At the end of the class, there's multiple entries. They'll be lined up on that side.
Okay.
Class winner on this end and down that way. Okay? Make sense? And so if I tell you there are 2 red, they automatically do a 2 on that end. Does that make sense?
Yep, that's good.
I live in a free state. You're gonna work it all the way around and you're
Hey, Rocky.
Yeah. You can pull me a little farther down. Okay. Thank you. Next time she gets the gear like these here, we'll make a big oval like this. Walks right in. Make sense? Young man. Sir. Face her right here. Ma'am. Heel around, stand right here. Okay. Make sense?
An intriguing class here, really. Obviously, our first class required any sort of decision making, and I suspicion that judges are going to be of mixed mind on one particular female in here, and if I'm not in agreement with you, that's okay. That's the beauty of the business. We can do different things. We might as well go ahead and kind of set the stage a little bit as we're here early in the show. I'm looking for a female that balances a lot of things. she's got to maintain the components that really bode into beef profit. And that is, at the end of the day, what's the most important thing for a female? She's got to last. There's a whole bunch of things that go in that she has to last. And so, most importantly, it means she's got to have the propensity to get bred. Clearly, we can't determine some of those things right here and right now, but we can look into skeleton. We can look into fat cover. We can look into balancing both moderation and compact size with an appropriate growth curve that still kind of fits into the beef business. And from my standpoint, I guess the top two heifers kind of line up together for me. Do they have quite the wow factor of the heifers in 3 and 4? Probably not in terms of hair coat and mass and that sort of thing. But if we look at feminine traits of skeletal correctness, some extension, a much more appropriate level of fat cover for me personally for a female at this age, I think these heifers kind of sort up. Now within them, I think what sorts them is the female who's going to win the class. I think she's a little bit more correct in terms of her hip design. She's a bit more level in terms of her pin placement. She's a bit wider in terms of her pin placement as well. All those things then correlate down to the fact that she's a bit more appropriate in that rear step. She handles her hock better. She's just a bit sounder female when you read her through the rear third of her body. That gives her the knowledge. The female in second. Now, she is arguably a little, young lady in blue. The female in second is arguably a little bit longer spine. I certainly recognize that, and I appreciate that. And so if you might challenge me a little bit on this pair because of that, I won't fight you on that because I see the same thing. They're fairly similar in terms of rib shape, rib dimension, fat cover. Again, it's just that hip shape I tweak a little bit. If we do that, then this female might be able to slip to that top spot. Now the female stands in third. Again, if you want to run her up into the top end, I can totally understand why. Certainly she's the one when you walk in, you're like, wow, gets your attention. There's a lot of oomph there. Female still handles it pretty well in terms of her feet and legs. This female for me is huge body, she's balanced, she's level line, she's too heavy in terms of her condition for me, she's putting some fat down in her flying, she's a bit too full in her brisket, and maybe just a little bit more masculine for me at this stage of the game. The female is going to round out the class. Echoes some sentiments to the female who was in third, probably a little heavier condition than her top pair. She is extraordinarily bold ribbed. She's certainly going to be a low maintenance kind of female, I would anticipate. From a nutritional standpoint, she ought to be pretty kind to the feed bill. On the other hand, maybe from a big picture industry standpoint, we could stand to stretch her out just a little bit more. Maybe give her just a touch more extension, maybe just a bit more refinement and femininity. So, ladies and gentlemen, an intriguing and fun class on our first real decision. Give those exhibitors a nice hand, please.
I got that awning thing.
Oh, sweet.
I just seen it showing up there.
Yeah. Well, it was cloudy earlier today. That was.
All right, so our next class will be the Hereford females 2 years and older. Madison Evelo, Bo Peterson, Callie Rummel, Dugan Young.
Working. I know, roll down. I know. Yeah, no, once we're here, we're stuck here.
Putting it right. We'll go side by side off of her, okay?
So I will definitely be late. Did she not do it?
Squeeze me to the left. Push her away. Come out of that field, you always push away, so walk right in, okay?
We've got some different ages here, quite a wide swath between the class winner and the others in terms of age, and there's some good and bad associated with that. It can play on your mind just a little bit. You get a mature female who's figured out how to deal with life a little bit, and she's good. She can just hold herself together just a little bit better sometimes than younger females kind of working their way through that transition from heifer to young cow. But even with that said, I think when you get even past that, our oldest female in here who ultimately becomes our class winner, I think when you study her from a structure standpoint and integrity standpoint and how that blends in with some rib and some balance of maternal traits, I just think for me she's the logical one right now to come into this class. I think you take out her size, you take out her condition, take all those things out. She's the one when you study and let's compare rib cage and mass and still add it to refinement and femininity and length. She's the one who balances those. When we look at structural integrity, she's as sound as anything in class. Maybe everything in here is just a little too long-toed, but they're working, I get it. So to me, she just becomes the logical place, and I think almost regardless of who's judging this class, I think she's going to find her way up to the top end. I think does so pretty handily. The other three, frankly, you can do whatever you want with, and any judge who comes in here and definitively says the other three has to go in any particular order is either smarter, bolder, or more foolish than I am. Because I recognize that what you would have to tell me to have an appropriate idea on these three females is what's my long-term goal? What's the plan? Who am I going to mate into? How's it going to mesh up? But short of that, we're going to function. Young man, come right here. Young man. Female comes in and says, Does she need more flesh on her? Yes, from a show ring standpoint, she's in her working clothes, and so she's a bit wrung out. But what we can see is, compared to the other young females, she is working, so we can respect that at a high level. You can tell she's angry about being out here because she's working. But if we compare her to the female that's going to land in third, while this female is maybe a little too trim from an ideal standpoint in the show ring, she's much closer to appropriate, in my opinion, for a female in the big picture of things. I think, young man, go ahead. You can let her out. We're good. I can keep jabbing. Let her go. Let's go. Yep. You want to hold her? But you got to have the cap with her, right? Okay, very good. She's longer fronted. She's a bit more feminine than the female that stands in third, and so I think that's what sorts her. The dark female, if you say Chip, there's just so much there. There is. I agree. There is. My concern is when I put her in a pasture setting, how much of that's going to melt off. I'm afraid when she melts down a little bit, she's going to come across as a little different than maybe what we see her right here and now. Now we see a lot of mass. We see a lot of substance. I'm afraid that that's not going to look the same, and I think underneath that she's probably the coarsest female in class in terms of her front end design and her hip structure, but I do give her a little credit in this class and keep her in third because there is some scaling, there is some weight to it. The female that's probably the one that's going to move around most in class, I think, is 4. And here's the female that, to be really honest, everybody wants to find a way to use, because she's as striking as anything in class. The lady presents her really, really well. I think she's one that, when she gets a few more months down the road, and she starts to bloom up a little bit more, she's going to change her position in this drive. Right now, my job is to try to balance how they look today and where they're going. Right now, she's the green one. It just gets a little bit wrung out at times, and you combine that with the fact that she's a little bulky in terms of this section of her shoulder. She personally turns out a little too much up front for me. I'd like those front feet to kind of square up just a little bit. I think once we get past this kind of awkward green stage, she's really going to come on. Right now, she's kind of in those, when a young boy gets to 12 or 13, he looks just a little bit peculiar, but then all of a sudden he gets to the backside and he's a man. That's where I find her. So she's the one I think probably has the most disagreement on the outside of the pin, but recognize that I understand and I see what she's going to be, but I have to concede she's not there right now. Ladies and gentlemen, 4 worthy exhibitors are busting their tail. Would you do me a favor and give them a nice hand for us, please?
Next class will be the Hereford cow-calf pair, Bo Peterson and Callie Reynolds. Megan Evelo with the Hereford heifer between 1 and 2, Callie Rummel with the Hereford female 2 years or older, and the winner of this class.
We're going to be kind to the exhibitors here in this particular drive. Both blue ribbon entries in this particular class, and we appreciate females that are just getting the job done. 2 good calves. You saw us just talk about the females, so if you can't figure out kind of my orientation there, then, well, you weren't here a minute ago. So the only real decision here is kind of how do the calves kind of weigh out. We've talked about all the animals in here, so out of courtesy to the exhibitors, we're not going to parade them around very much. I guess to me, really, there's just a situation where there's a pair in here who they're similar in terms of their basic build. That build is the kind that scratches my itch a little bit. As a result, I just think the pair that's standing up on the far end, they're going to be our class winners in this particular group, and the female's closer to me. Young man's got that cow. It's going to stand second. Ladies and gentlemen, get those exhibitors tonight.
All right, so overall Hereford female will be Callie Rummel and Madison Evelo to bring back.
Andy, you guys need to
coming in with them? No, they're together.
We're doing all the females.
How many more is coming? One more?
8. How many more are we gonna come in?
Just one, because she had the calf champion.
Pick between
Yeah.
the cow, the calf, and the heifer.
Yeah, so we got one more heifer.
We have that heifer, we have the pair, we have the calf. So we really have 4 entries out here. Do we agree? Okay. Just right here. Give the audience a little bit of a profile. Let's wait till I and you follow. Just take us around and come back to you. Yeah. And you can stop when you get to about right now. Okay?
Okay, well, I'll grab some. Yep. All right, gal.
All right, so to make sure that we're all on the same page here, just as a reminder, we actually have 4 different entries in this class. So we have the young heifer calf, who won her class. We have the female that's farther to my left, who came out of her division. Then we have the older cow, who came out of the older female division. And then we have the pair. Make sure we're all on the same page, because otherwise this could get a little confusing. So I just want to make sure we're all in agreement. So I guess as I see them, really all 3 of these females got quite a bit of praise from me, because I think all 3 of them set a model that when we open the gate and go out there, we can get something done, right? That's the point. And they do it with some work and some style. Even given that, I guess for me, really the decision comes down probably to the 2 females that are within the pair. How do you structure that? From a championship standpoint, you can do different things, but I think those 2 are the females who still pack that moderate size, that look, and do it maybe with a bit more stoutness, a bit more rib and dimension. For me, I guess I can't hardly not appreciate when you can do it together in one package like that. So, the pair will be our champion in this overall division. The oldest female, farthest to my right, will be our reserve. Give all our exhibitors in this deal a nice hand.
Makes sense? Okay. Nice job. Congratulations. Nice job. Thank you very much.
Rappers are just on the box for us to get those. Okay.
All right, so Callie Reynolds, your heifer will come back for, your cow calf pair will come back for female top breeding animal at the end of all these shows.
Last one's a scratch. All right, here we go. You'll go to him, sir. Go straight to that guy right there, okay? And you'll line up right beside him, young lady, right? Just gonna pin straight in the face. ahead and turn them. We'll take off and make a circle, okay? Follow your ring, okay? Just go with it. All the way up to him. Sir, set her up right here, okay? Make sense? Go ahead and turn her around so she's facing me. Yep. Big circle. Big circle forward and walk her right.
A thought-provoking riddle here, and it can have different answers. The heifer is going to win the class. I think when it comes to substance and mass and power, rib cage, muscles, pin width, just oomph, she wins and wins pretty handily. Her challenges, however, are also real. From an attractiveness standpoint, she balances up probably as well as anything in class from her shoulders back. From her shoulders forward, she's a little coarse, a little leathery, but again, that's just cosmetics. Probably the bigger issue for me is hair. So either it's one of those deals that we're going to have a really fresh, fluffy kind of show heifer haircut at this time of year, or we can be slick. And again, I live in fescue country, and so slick doesn't bother me a lick at all. So I would try to determine that. If she was a little fresher in her hair, you could probably help her win this class even easier. But given that, I just think there's more heifer there than there is of her compatriots, and so she's going to win this trip. Young man, you can go in. 6 points to good. Coming in second. There's some decision here as well. In 2 and 3, this is not an easy call, and I'll tell you why. The female in 2 to me comes across as just a little too framey for her center body shape. She sells to me as maybe, ultimately, a bit higher maintenance than the other 2 females in class. So there's some hesitation, there's some reserve there for me. But still, when we compare to the female in 3rd, I think she's a little bit more uniform in terms of her body depth, both there fore-rib, mid-rib, and flank. I think when you study her in terms of her hip design, she's just a touch leveler. She needs a shot more power and a bit more overall just softness to her. but some of those things are similar issues to the female's going to round out the class, who is a bit more modern in terms of her frame size, and I respect and appreciate that. She might even actually have a bit more advantage in terms of bone work, and I do think she's going to be lower maintenance long term. Today she comes across as just a little bit high in her flank, just a little bit off in terms of her pin set, but a nice trio of blue ribbon heifers all the same. Give those exhibitors a nice hand for us, please.
You'll just make us a circle and set up in the middle, okay?
Okay, so next class would be any other crossbreed heifer over 1 and under 2, and this will be Emily Finley.
Young lady brings us a blue ribbon entry in this drive, but I think when you look at some of the things that you've heard me discuss already in terms of durability, longevity, I think she's going to bring those things to the table. She sounds fitted enough, she's big-bodied enough, she's heavy enough muscle for a female, she's pretty moderate and well-balanced. If you're going to work on her a little bit, it's mostly up front. So naturally, when left to her own devices, she's a little leathery fronted, not necessarily deep-throated, but a little leathery neck. And you combine that with the fact that she's probably got plenty of fat cover on her, it's kind of exaggerated that a little bit. But again, if that's the biggest problem I have with the brood cow prospect, I'm probably going to be okay. So a nice female here to represent this particular age group. Would you give the young lady a nice hand, please?
The overall, right? She needs to stay overall. Go ahead and let this cat come in. And let's just, on these overalls, let's just line them up. Okay? Let's just parade them around. So, young man, you follow him. You follow him. We're going to work all the way back over to this side, okay? Back over to our normal profile side.
To find a champion in this particular group. And again, both of these females, you've heard me comment in terms of the fact they got some power, they got some body to them. And I also commented both of them that maybe their front end was their ultimate nemesis. And so there are some similarities between the two of them. There are certainly some differences, however, as well. And I think when you study the differences and look at which female brings maybe just a nickel's worth of more natural muscle, and as well being just a nickel's worth more structurally correct, in particular in terms of her hip and hind leg. I just think there's one of the females who puts those things together in a bit more performance-oriented and in a bit more attractive package, and that's going to be the young man's heifer. She's going to be the champion in this particular group.
Which one's one with it?
This is your champion right here.
Right here's your champion.
You need a reserve?
So that'd be the reserve.
Well, there was a heifer in that class. There was other heifer. Wouldn't you bring like the second heifer from that class?
Good.
You got to have a reserve, right? Yeah. Yeah, so he's the champion.
Is that mic shut off? Or you can't use this one when that was turned on?
There's two different mic sets on there, so you can.
Kate Bagley with your Any Other Breed Heifer 1 to 2, please come into the room to be judged for reserve champion. And Callie Runnell with your pair, I believe you were supposed to be in there too.
Is he coming? Is he coming right back?
They're running over to get it right now.
I'd take that heifer out and let her relax myself. You're going to be in there a long time. Yeah, she doesn't belong in here. I need the other black heifer that keeps sent in class to her.
Kate Bagley, just you with your AOB heifer 1 to 2.
Young lady, let her just hang in the shade. That's a cowgirl right there, right? Make me a small loop and then kind of line up right by me, okay?
So as we find our reserve champion, again, you can argue either way. There's a bit more refinement and femininity than the female who just came in. There's certainly a lot more evidence of just some time in terms of flesh cover and body in the older female. So I think you can go either way. You won't get a fight for me. I'm going to go with the other young heifer. Young man who just came in is going to have our reserve in this particular job.
All right, you two, you can head out that gate right there, okay? Thank you very much. Congratulations, young man.
No, you got Kate.
Now we're bringing in our overall mini female breeding animal class. Callie Rummel with her Hereford cow-calf pair, and Bo Peterson with his AOB heifer 1 to 2. Madison Evelo with your Hereford heifer 1 to 2, please be on deck. And Kate Bagley with your AOB heifer 1 to 2, please be on deck.
bring her off the fence a little. Fence her.
Come to the point to find our first overall champion here for our day. And a couple things to plant as a reminder, we just went through the division that the young man came out of, and you recall how that champion and reserve pair came together out of there. For one thing, just remind ourselves, if you're somebody who's recently walked up, when it comes to the Hereford pair, they were both the champion as the pair, and the cow was actually in reserve. So just to make sure we kind of set the table a little bit. Again, as we sorted through the first group of females, probably a couple spots we could have certainly changed some things, and good rational cattlemen and cattlewomen could have sorted that out and made good sense out of it. But I think these three females in this case make good sense to me. I think when you study them compared to some of the populace that we've seen so far this morning, I think they're a nice mix of enough throw to make sense in the beef business, but still being modern enough to have that longevity and durability that we're looking for. I think they set that mold with enough soundness and enough look, and I think we're really, really worthy of being out here. So with that said, when it comes to me, there's just a situation I think that just makes sense here. And from a champion standpoint, the pair is going to be our champion, and then the cow within that pair is going to be our reserve. Congratulations.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Congratulations, Callie Rummel, with your cow-calf pair as both raised miniature female breeding beef and reserve miniature female breeding beef with the cows. Now we'll move into our mini breeding futurity classes. Evelo Madison, Evelo Megan, Finley Emily, Rummel Callie, and Rummel Michael.
Are these repeats from what we've done?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and there might be some that are maturity from last year coming in.
Okay.
So they'll have a cow calf with them.
At the conclusion of our mini breeding futurity classes, we'll begin with large breeding beef. Isabel Gilliard, Braden Kopp, please be ready with your Angus heifers under 1.
In the alleyway yet, so they're okay.
So now we're moving right on to our large breeding beef classes. Our first class, Angus heifer under 1 year, Isabel Gilliard and Braden Kopp.
Oh, no, we're going to, it's a class. Let's stack them up. We'll only do that on our champion. Stack side by side on that. Gives me one chance to study it close.
really nice females here to start to breed, and I think there's a lot to compliment on both of them. But even given that, I think when you study these two, and the lady's going to set up her class with her, she kind of fights with a young heifer there. I think just pretty straightforward, this heifer is put in here to win. I think she has just a bit more appropriateness in terms of her balance and the way that balance and eye appeal plays with her lower joints. She's a bit more correct in terms of the lay and the tightness of her shoulder, while still blowing out plenty big enough into her rib cage. But her real advantage is the hind third of that female. She's much more correct from the hop to the ground, the way she uses that rear pastern. You combine all that with that added power and pounds that she has, she wins the class pretty easily. Now, the female in second, still a blue ribbon candidate here that brings some things that we're going to like. This female certainly is much less mature at this point. The time's going to change things. I think long term she's going to be more than adequate in terms of muscle. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think she's going to be more than adequate in terms of center body. She's probably always going to be a little bit more moderate than her contemporary. She's a bit shorter cannon and those kind of things. Again, probably the biggest thing for her right now is can we clean up that hock and make that pastern hit just a little more comfortable. If we do that, she might vie up for that top spot. Ladies and gentlemen, give both of those ladies a nice hand for us, please.
Okay, our next class will be Angus heifer over 1 and under 2 years. Megan Evero, Isabel Gilliard, Brooklyn Cox, Ellie Mitty, and Kyla Roberts.
So I just think if you don't have any.
It'll give me
Dog stat.
Yep.
You're doing good. Yep, stacking side by side.
well as we work through this class, clearly, we lost a female who would have certainly played on the up end of this drive pretty aggressively, but I understand sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. The female who sorts herself up, certainly she's the female who brings the wow factor. She's the one who's dressed up, she's got her clothes on, she looks the part, she's got the hair and the fluff, but she's still fresh haired, that's important, not big old forced head stuff, that's no fun to look at. I like her size in this class. I think she's big and attractive, yet still moderate, and that's a thin balance. Her biggest weakness, frankly, for me is she's just a bit aggressive in terms of her brisket build. I think if you, and I get it, there's a balance and a dance on this one. She's big ribbed enough, but she's not huge ribbed as she comes out of her blade. As a result, if you melt some of that fat, I understand the conundrum. You melt some of that fat, she's going to come across as a little bit pinched. And so you, as the exhibitor and the feeder, you got to pick your back. So we would tweak that if we could, even given that, especially given the class dynamic as it presently exists. She wins this war pretty handy. Coming into second, oh, by the way, and that's saying something because this is easily the deepest class we've seen to this point. The female that's going to ultimately win in second. Here's one this is a cat, right? This kind of makes the world go round. And you can put together loads of females like that, you can make beef producers better every day of the week. Female is sound enough, moderate. She's the kind I can breed to a lot of things. I can use her as a seed stock female and pick my Angus bull of choice, or I can take her out and throw a continental bull on her and let a heterosis do his magic. She's got lots of options with this one. Really good footed, much better in terms of the lay of her lower chest, and she's actually a little bit bolder in her lower heart and rib than the female who wins the class, especially when you account for the flesh. She just gets a little out of horse in this particular drive. That's just the way things are going to be sometimes, but that's a good kind of cow class right there. The Red Angus female comes in here and a rare situation, but especially as the last four landed, probably the largest frame of the Angus females that we have in this drive. You won't see that a lot from the Reds. Female's got a lot of stretch, got a lot of extension. I would argue probably has more muscle in her than the female that's directly in front of her. She's more shapely in the up over her loin edge. She's more expressive in terms of her hip. This is the kind that could really go out and make a red bull that you could really be proud of. She's attractive. She's bigger boned than maybe another female or two in class. Today, she probably doesn't have quite the same sort of smoothness of shoulder set or that balance up high that comes with the female directly in front of her. But that's also what puts her in a position to maybe go out and make that stomping young bull cat that the young lady's hoping for coming down the road. So there's some give and take. And so if you swap that little pair, you'll get no argument from me. Rounding out the class, the young lady's heifer is going to land in 4. No question the most moderate of anything in class, and we all know when it comes to feed bills or when it comes to fertilizer or pasture management, or whatever the case, that moderation does a lot of good things for us. And so along with that, she's bold ribbed enough. She's not the deepest flank female in class, but she's plenty bold ribbed for me. Again, her challenge in this drive, she gives up just a little bit of the spit and polish. She gives up just a little bit of the refinement up front, just a little bit of squareness to her pin set, and probably is a little bit fairer ragged than a couple of her compatriots. But again, another good blue ribbon cow prospect to round out this class. Would you give that group of exhibitors a nice hand for us, please?
Okay, so our next class will be Angus female, 2 years or older, Megan Evelo, and Braden Kopp.
Same as always, right? I like it when you're leading me in because you know the drill.
The female is going to win this one. I think has a lot of commonality maybe between one of the females we described in the last class in terms of just being a really flexible breeding piece. She's, again, big, happening growth, but yet does it with enough of the moderation that we need to keep things tempered down just a little bit. Probably her big advantages in this particular drive. Frankly, there's just more female there by some margin, and that's always going to help. She's got more power in her, more rib cage. She's got a nickel's worth more flesh on her, and that doesn't hurt to polish one up as you come to town. But probably the thing I really admire is just a touch more flexibility and nimbleness in terms of her feet and legs. You set this one in motion, she balances and she's really flexible at the ground, and as a result, when you watch her move, her spine just flexes and floats. She doesn't get too rigid or stiff. Just a really nice young cow. Coming into second, again, another very quality female, and I appreciate that she's working. I appreciate the refinement of her teats. I clean that blind teat up on the right side, so her teats are refined. And she's plenty shapely enough from a muscle standpoint for an Angus female. In here, it's probably a little bit more the rigidness in her spine, a little bit more of the stiffness in her rear steps compared to our class winner. But again, another very worthy blue ribbon. Give the ladies a nice hand for us.
So the next class will be Angus cow-calf pair, so bringing the calf in.
Make me a nice circle here in the middle, okay?
But I got several of them. It takes to look so good. I almost hate to send them to the sale because I know that they can give me a couple more cows. And they're such good cows. They're good cows. But you get to that point where you're like, but you got to go there. You got to keep moving on.
And a lot of these kids, are those cattle being sold, or a lot of them keeping them?
So this setup here is probably
Our lone pair, I think you can certainly see the resemblance in the young female to her mother. There's a lot of commonality in build. I mean, she's put together just like her. In terms of that extension, that refinement up front, female's fairly similar in terms of her center body shape. Maybe the one nemesis that we grab on both is maybe that slight rigidness of spine and the way it transfers itself down to that rear step. But again, two really good females come together and make a nice, really nice balanced cow-calf pair to represent this group. Give the exhibitors a nice hand.
It doesn't taste any different than really.
Okay, so Braden Kopp, you can stay. We need to bring in Megan Evelo, Ellie Mitty, and Isabel Gilliard to have our overall Angus female class.
But most
Once
of
they
them
come in,
so
you'll just kind of drag
class where it's
around them.
put it back in the breeding stock. It has to go through a slot. Interesting. Yeah. Could you get that?
We're just going to profile this time. Just a big parade around, okay? Yep.
Sophie?
And when you do come around, just right here's cool.
Yeah.
Because you have a lot of kids. Because they don't want to see Joey go on the trailer on Saturday. It's hard. Because they spent 6 months of their life there.
Now you all just got to set in motion. You'll get there about the same time.
We also need normal
First year,
start getting over.
and she broke down.
Okay, signals are here. We just need rumble. Thanks. Okay, thank you. So shade towards the north side. Thank you.
So they're really into it. So when it shows, I mean, they look at the cattle that they present. They're good stuff right there. I mean, you probably ain't gonna finest bed anything
Yeah,
today.
I like their coat.
I mean,
They're really shiny, nice
she's got it.
coats.
So, and she works with them. Yeah, spend some time. But she didn't really know. Yeah. Paid her way, we call it. 4 years of this.
To keep the money like those. Yeah, they sell. Nice.
So if he sells for 7, 8 grand,
That's more than
that's what you make. But I mean, you got a lot of feet into it too. You know what I mean?
yeah, you gotta put money in.
It's a fun lineup.
To get to that point, you got.
Thank you, ladies. You've done a nice job bringing consistent quality, and it wasn't always just at the top of the class. We were going 2, 3, 4 deep in some cases. Just a really good structure, a good, useful, versatile cattle that can go out and make a lot of operations, take the next step. And you can go to a lot of places and not actually see that happen. And in particular, as we're studying our Angus females, we really admire the quality of the feet and legs that we're seeing in these calves, watching the toes, just really good stuff. And so, not a female in here that I'm not a fan or an admirer of, and so we can talk through this for a while. But in lieu of that, to show some kindness to the calves, we're going to settle in here and talk a bit more aggressively, I think, on the pair that really comes down to the decision for me. And that's the 2 females right there in the middle. I think those are going to be the 2 that kind of put themselves in position to do the job. We're the difference. The younger female is clear, as we've stated already. The female to this point in the show is the most dressed up of any female we've seen. And if you're dressed up and dressed up appropriately, that's always a pleasant thing. But separate from that, if I can't see through that, then we should get rid of it. Where are her real advantages? Because all that will go away soon enough. Her real advantages compared to her competitor behind her, she's a touch more moderate. She's probably a little closer to the pattern. So I appreciate that about her. She's as good in terms of foot placement, in terms of joint angles when set in motion, as anybody in the drop. Probably the only gap that so far has gotten close is this one right here. So that's fun, that's good to know. So to me, it's the moderation of frame and how she balances that with her rib and her hip structure. She does a nice job of blending out to a very attractive hip and hind leg. We'd like to trim her up before. The female behind her, obviously an older female in a different spot in life. But again, here's one who balances up, is really nice. She's super dead level, good in terms of the way she handles her pelvis. Again, she's older. She's been out doing her toes are a little longer. All of those things are going to affect the way she steps a little bit. But still, when you read her joints and her angles, to me, she's the other female who really kind of challenges and rivals the female in front of her in terms of getting out and just motoring and doing what, as we described in class, with that flexibility on the top. It just really does it in a nice, fun, eye-appealing fashion. Where's her challenges, at least relative to this championship spot? Well, we have to concede that if we're going to compare the 2, she's probably not quite as angular and kind of cool and eye-appealing in terms of her hip structure. Maybe isn't quite as wide in her pin placement, but it's close. So to me, that's the horse race. It's very subtle, and you can go either way there, and you'll get no challenges from this fellow at all. But I think this is where the decision lies in the Angus division. We don't really have to think about what comes next, because this is where it lies. Today, young lady, you'll be our champion. Congratulations. Nice group of Angus females.
Shake your hands, so you can just take us out. I'll let you be the boss.
Ellie Mitty for overall Angus female champion. Next class will be Hereford Heifer over 1 and under 2. That'll be Greta Young.
She's ready.
Just so I know. When I heard the age, I was like, okay, that's what I want to see. Just make me a parade. Young lady, just like you said, start.
Young lady brings us our lone Hereford female in this particular portion of the show. Certainly one who's got a level top, she's got some elevation, still pretty clean and extended up front. So those things are all pieces we like. And she's ample in terms of muscle relative to her breed. Her kryptonite's a little bit down low. Structurally, she's just really straight off both ends of her skeleton. If you study her, if this is a 4-H or an FFA judging contest lesson, if you study her in terms of the lay of her scapula, she's a bit too upright, and as a result, that causes her to get that knee just a little too far forward, and maybe just arguably a bit too short-toed and deep-heeled up front. But probably her bigger challenge is in her rear. That rear pastern, we really wanted to lay back into the heel of that foot. She really wants to knuckle up, pretty aggressive. So from a longevity standpoint, it at least gives us pause. So we got to think about those things. And so again, lots of pieces to admire. Just need to work on the structure in this one just a little bit to have a bit more confidence from a stability standpoint. Ladies and gentlemen, give the young lady with our lone Hereford female a nice hand, please.
So our next class will be the Maine Andrew Heifer, under 1 year, Cassidy Bagnell.
You just tell me when we get to lone entry breed.
These are low, this is low. There's next 4 also.
Just a nice circle and show her off in the middle, okay? There you go. Awesome.
Single Maine Andrew female, blue ribbon female here in this particular breed group. Certainly relative to her, she's young, clearly we know that. Relative to her breed group, she adds a lot of soundness and flexibility that sometimes we have to be a bit conscious of. She does really long stride, really long reach, really gets out and flexes good off both ends. Maybe relative to the main population, may not be as heavy muscled as some of those, but again, pretty green right now, so some of that's going to come. We're not super hyped up over that. Long neck, level made, sound built, those are things that you start with. When you have that kind of rib cage, a lot of the rest is going to come with time, especially when you read her up high. You might say, well, she doesn't have a lot of oomph in her right now. Yeah, maybe, but read her in the upper portions of her pelvis. She's still pretty wide pinned and pretty square in that upper hip. That tells me the muscle will come with time. She's just a little bit green yet. So, nice job to represent your group. Thank you very much. Give the young lady a nice hand.
So our next class will be the Maine Andrew Heifer, over 1 year and under 2 years, Callie Rummel.
brings us another blue ribbon entry, and so thank you very much for that. Heifers have a little chance right now, and he's done a nice job of keeping that concern at bay. Sound enough, again, things you've heard me talk about. I like where this female's at in terms of her longevity, in terms of maturity pattern. Again, another one of those females who balances some oomph, some growth, some power, and still in a pretty moderate kind of package. So I certainly respect that. Big ribs, sound made, all those are great things. If you're going to tweak a little bit from just a raw cosmetic standpoint, some might argue, well, maybe she's not the biggest bone female ever was. No, probably not. But how many of those big bone force-footed females ever make cows? Not very many. So again, I would actually argue she's pretty refined and pretty appropriate in terms of her bone work. Nice female to represent this group. Give her a hand.
So our next class will be main Andrew female 2 years or older, and we'll also bring in the main Andrew cow-calf pair with Cassidy Bagnell to be judged separately.
Again, just to reaffirm what was said from the block, so really we have two classes here. So we have the cow would come out of her own division, and then we would immediately follow her up with the pair, and the wise decision was made in the back to run them together. That's just using wisdom. So let's talk about the cow. Pretty refined in terms of teeth structure. We appreciate that. Female has certainly got some bone work and some substance of foot. Again, as you would expect, relative to her breed makeup, she's clearly long spined and long and clean fronted. So those things are all positives that you can't help but admire. For me personally, probably gets just a little bit extreme in terms of frame size, and the combination of frame size with her center body shape sells as a bit higher maintenance than might be ideal to me. Now, some of that's exaggerated by the fact that she's working pretty hard with the young effort gap, but I think most of it just is what it is. And so I would probably tone her back just a little bit in frame size, maybe give her just a bit more rib and body to maybe balance out just a bit more of an easy, refreshing look. As we study them as a pair, all the things associated with the cow, so as they are clearly, I think maybe what we've seen in the mating approach going forward is we've addressed a few of those issues. We've probably toned down frame size on Nicholsworth over here in the calf. Maybe I'm seeing just a sense more depth of mid-rib coming in the calf down the road. So I think maybe the mating was a good choice, and it solved some of the concerns. So a nice cow, a nice pair. We appreciate the ladies in the Andrew division. Would you give them
So Callie Rummel, you can come in with your main Andrew heifer 1 year and under 2, and Cassidy Bagnell will stay for overall main Andrew female.
Okay, we're going to follow her around. Just going to work our way all the way back up to the corner.
make sure we're all kind of on the same page. We have 4 classes represented in the ring right now. So we have the young calf, we have our heifer, we have a cow, we have a pair, just so we know what we're studying. And so we have a variety of things that could unfold. But I guess for me, one of the things that's going to be pretty straightforward, I think when we ponder all the pieces, you've heard me puke into this microphone about for the last little bit. You probably know there's a female who kind of wraps those things into a slightly more appealing package for me. It's going to be the young lady here on my right with the heifer. She's going to have the champion in this particular division, and the young calf is going to be our reserve. Congratulations.
Congrats to Callie Rummel. Our next class will be Shorthorn Bull under 1 year. Isabel Gilliard.
Is this our only short horn? You're just going to make me a big circle, right?
Okay. I'm gonna go back to my I know. Carly, I didn't hear what your warning was. You helped a little too late. I didn't hear your warning. Yeah, I have her name here. I know, because she said it and I'm like, oh,
That's good by my standards, and you're never.
This is under 1. Oh, this one?
What's the birthday?
The young lady brings us a single shorthorn bull. And when you look at this calf, certainly one that, yes, he brings the pieces that you expect from a shorthorn. He's sound-footed, he's attractive, all those pieces that you would expect to be baked into the cake, and they are. But, especially at a pretty young age, already starting to body down and put some midrib into himself. Calf is really starting to fill out nicely. His top line's starting to come in pretty good. He's level and he's correct. It's a nice, really high-end shorthorn bull calf to get this particular class fired up. So thank you to the young lady with her blue ribbon calf.
So our next class will be Shorthorn Heifer under 1 year. Isabel Gilliard.
So I told you that the bull calf we saw a second ago kind of brought that structural integrity and just raw design and an appealing visual and structural package, and he did. And then the heifer comes out, and she doesn't. It's not terribly surprising that she ratchets that up just a little bit more in terms of eye appeal, right? She becomes more feminine fronted than you'd expect out of a bull calf. She's thin neck, she's tight neck, shoulder, and again carries back and is starting to really lay into a nice rib shape for a pretty young, immature animal. Again, some might think I get just a touch more bone work on her, maybe just a hair. But again, I think this female is good in her joints and clean in her joints, and that's far more important than a little more foot size here or there, that kind of thing. So he balances up, she's attractive. It's another quality woman to represent this particular class.
So our next class will be Shorthorn Heifer over 1 year and under 2 years. Megan Evelo, Harley Gilliard, and Isabel Gilliard.
pretty challenging class here. Not because the cattle are hard to evaluate. In fact, the females are very easy, and it's very evident what they are. There's not a lot of things to make you miss in this particular drive. The question is, how do you balance? Because there are pieces of each female that's really, really good. And each one of them has some challenge. And so we need to accept that, and as a result, you and I might not necessarily agree on how these line up, and I can live with that. Let's hope we can agree on how we evaluate them. I think that's maybe a bit more important than this one. The female's going to win the class. Where's her challenge in this drive? Well, for me personally, and everybody's a little different, if she had a nickel's worth more of the moderation of the female stands in second, it would help her win this class a bit more definitively. Because to me, her size isn't the challenge. It's the fact that it's the combination between her size and how much rib cage she has. We need less of one or more of the other to really think, for her to really sell as that kind of low maintenance, soggy kind of female. She sells as just a nickel's worth harder than her, well, not a nickel's worth harder, she sells as harder than her female that stands right behind her. But her advantages, I think when you study both of them compositionally and where they're going to be long term, I think this female is a little more honest today in terms of her fat cover and how that's going to portray itself into a pasture setting long term. She's certainly more refined. She's certainly a bit more extended. She has all the IOT pieces. She gets those, and that's a given. But I think she has more muscle. I think she has quite a bit more honest upper hip shape. I think she's going to be a stouter female who's always going to be a little bit cooler to look at and a little bit higher maintenance than the female that stands in second. That's how I see it. Now, if you land on the female, the blue female in the middle of the class and say, yeah, but Chip, preach about moderation and low maintenance and ease of flushing, and I do, then, and if you're going to go here, I get it. My question about this one is, because there's so much about her I like. My question is, the more and more I study her, when I melt the back cover off of her, and she's got a fair amount, how much is left? I think the young lady's done a nice job of trying to give me an optical illusion. She's better good, and as a result, I think it's put more mass on her than there's going to be in a pasture setting. That to me is the issue. I think when she melts down, she's going to come across as a little bit flatter made, a little bit plainer in terms of her rib cage than she sells right now. She's always going to be more moderate. She's always going to be easier flushing than the other females in class. So as a result, if you'd move her up, you'll get no argument from me, and if you think I'm wrong, I'll go ahead and concede you're right. That way our argument's done. Now, the female's going to round out the class. You could argue that maybe, Chip, you cowered out and she should have stood in second if you're going to use your class winner. You might be right. This female certainly is more in tune or aligned with the basic philosophy of the class winner. This female is fancy and she is cool to look at, especially up front. My concerns are similar that I have with the class one, the fact that she's ultimately going to be just a nickel's worth higher maintenance than the blue female in class. The challenge for this one is she wants to duck her bends just a little bit when you set her in motion. It's subtle, and it kind of is a bit exaggerated by the fact that I really like that she doesn't have a tailhead that's too high, or maybe her tailhead ducks just a little bit too. And so as a result, she comes just a little bit rounder out of her hip. She is probably a little bolder rib than the female who started the class, and probably, honestly, a bit bolder in terms of the rib cage than the female who stands in second. I think ultimately what we're looking at here is time's going to solve some of this conundrum for us, and we're going to see what she turns into. But to me, today, I'd fix that hip a little bit. If I do that, put a few more groceries on her, she might be able to sneak up into that second spot. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a fun blue ribbon class from top to bottom. Give them a nice hand.
So our next class will be short-horn female, 2 years or older, Megan Evelo.
Oh, everybody.
bacon?
No, if you don't like bacon, you're not really a human. Anybody says they don't like bacon, they're a liar.
I know, right? Sorry.
I can't trust that person. Thank you. Can I hear a single entry?
Single entry.
Young lady brings us a nice single entry in this one, another high-end blue ribbon kind of female. Again, you saw her when she strolls in. Female's got soundness to spare. She's just natural, flexible, real. She's big-ribbed enough for a shorthorn female. Again, as always, we're flirting on the edge of maybe just a nickel's worth big for me personally, but I get it. Within her breed type, she's going to be okay in that regard. To me, she blends together very effective. She's getting just a little cover down in her brisket, so she's losing just a little bit of that lady-like look that she had there kind of in the base of her neck as she ties back into her shoulder. But past that, really good, functional, big, long hips, big pelvis in that female. Nice one to represent this age group.
She stays then.
Yeah, stay in.
So for the overall shorthorn female class, Megan Ebeler will stay with her shorthorn female 2 years or older. Isabel Gilliard will bring back her shorthorn heifer over 1 year under 2 years, and her shorthorn heifer under 1 year.
Just make a circle, right?
And Kaya Hendrickson, if you want to be on deck with your some tall heifer over 1 and under 2 years, you'll be the next class.
Fun trio here. The ladies bring us some high caliber entries here in this championship flight, and so you can see it. You don't need me to sit here and puke ad nauseum about all the fancy things about them. They're a good set of females that have look, soundness, and are actually relative to their different ages and maturity patterns fairly comparable, to be honest, in terms of rib cage. There's a subtle difference in terms of muscle mass and stoutness and bone work, and maybe a subtle difference in terms of ultimate frame size in one case. But in general, they mesh up really, really nice. To me, again, what am I going to look for? Where can we find the one who blends the most pieces? I see the most fancy in the little calf. I see the most soundness in the older female. I see maybe the balance in the middle. The lady in the middle of this trio is going to be our champion in this particular division.
Good time to grab a hold of her.
Chris, can you repeat that?
Isabel.
You're going to go ahead and just let her rest. She's under right now. We need the blue heifer.
The blue one. Yeah.
I haven't yet.
Hasn't yet.
You'll just take your spot, okay?
And then the blue heifer comes in and pushes people around, and she becomes she's the contrast, right? She's different from the other females that we've looked at, and we talked about that in class, so we won't carry on, but some of that's good and some of it's a challenge. To me, the decision now really comes down to the two red females, and again, you can go with a little bit of that added refinement, but you've probably gathered by now I'm a structure freak, really like the older female for reserve. That's where she'll land. Congratulations to all the folks in this particular division.
Go ahead and do your Thank you. Congratulations.
Hey Chris, I have the symbol and then my other tag right here. I have my one in the next class. So just hand this one. No, I'm just gonna go right there. Go ahead.
So our next class will be any Senecal heifer over. So our next class will be Senecal heifer over 1 and under 2 years, Kaya Hendrickson.
Just make me a circle and plant it right here, okay? Is this the only semi? Is that what I heard?
There's one more coming.
Oh, and a different one. Okay.
So the only female in this particular drive really does a nice job on a couple fronts. You like the muscle shape, you like the power that she brings without it being too excessive, still fairly powerful, fairly long in terms of that muscle pattern. A female who certainly brings some stoutness of bone, stoutness of foot, and she's pretty modern. Actually, her frame size appeals to me a great deal, actually. And so, maybe more so than almost any female we've seen at this point. Her challenges lie in the fact that she could maybe be a little softer in her midrib if you drop her there. But probably her bigger challenge is she could propel a bit more comfortably off those hind wheels. We could really see her just reach with a bit more authority. She'll be just a little bit stiff as she comes down into that back leg and into that rear pastern. So that's probably our biggest thing is if we could just get her out there and drive and float off those hind tubes. But a really highly presented, worthy entry in this Senegal.
She's the champion then. And congratulations for that. You can go ahead and let yourself.
Congrats to Kaya Hendrickson. Our next class will be any other breed heifer under 1, Abby Riska.
What's coming next? Tell me. Help me understand what this English by is. So these crosses.
So we have our English. We have an English sugar lines. I don't know what they're doing. They're all.
Oh, yeah, but tell me. I need to know what this is.
I don't know. This is the first time I've done this. I would have. I would have had that.
So you might figure that out. One thing is we're dragging these 30 heifers.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah. And
Hey Rocky, we're ready.
Yep, I'm ready.
Any other one?
Single entry, you say?
Yes.
Yes. Young lady, they probably already told you, just make the little circle, right? You knew. You didn't know you were down
Hey. Yeah. Any other
over one. Yeah. Which is well, they're not in our entry.
Oh, no, I understand. So what is it? What is any other three?
So these are overbred calves. These crossbreeds are calves. So these are that's
What's the birthday rate? Our first belted female comes in, and again, if you're familiar with that breed, you know they're going to be pretty hardy and good skeleton kind of cow, and I think that's what you see here. Pretty sound, pretty deep and soft body, going to be pretty moderate long-term in terms of size and scale. Again, also if you're familiar with the breed, muscle emphasis isn't the biggest thing ever was. That's probably a place we could help her a little bit, maybe just a bit more muscle through the center portion of that stifle and that lower quarter, but a good sound, durable female to represent this particular class.
But those kids aren't ready. Bridger could be sent down there. Oh, next for later. Okay. Yep, go ahead.
So the next class will be any other breed heifer over 1 year and under 2 years, Kaya Hendrickson and Bridger Smith.
Side by side. Snap. Young man, you're on this side, right?
You know, this female's going to sort herself up in this class, and I think she does so pretty definitively. There's a female, again, who brings a lot of the things we've talked about together, and does it with a pretty authoritative shot of muscle to boot. And so, if you can do all of those things, be dressed up and look the part on show day, you're usually going to be in a pretty good spot. I think that heifer wins this one pretty good. Now, that doesn't take away from the short switch female at all. This female, again, from a cow prospect, is moderate, sound. She just kind of runs against the buzzsaw a little bit in this particular drive. It's a little bit of a challenge, but in terms of on her own merits, in terms of what she's going to do long term, she too does all those things we've talked about. Probably just doesn't have quite the overall pop or wow factor to get it done in this particular drive. Thank you to both of those exhibitors.
Do you want me to just stay in the ring?
Okay, so Kaya Hendrickson, you can stay with your any other breed heifer over 1 and under 2, and we'll bring back Abby Risco with any other breed under 1 year heifer.
When she goes in front of you, we'll just make a lap and go over to there, okay?
Okay.
Now, does he know he can't go away too far?
Well, Bridger, second, you might have to say yes.
Okay, and Bridger Smith, stay on deck with your AOB heifer.
As we sort through our champion here in the AOB division, again, I just think it becomes reasonably clear, and I don't think it's going to vary very much. Young ladies, older females, going to be our champion in this particular division. Give both of those exhibitors a nice hand, please.
Where's Bridger at?
Young lady, you stay right there, okay?
Bridger needs to come.
Okay, Bridger Smith, you can please enter the arena.
Did they give you breed designations on the AOBs or just? Okay.
She's saying that
Snakes across. That's what the world calls it.
Come on, Bridger, we're waiting for you.
Young man, just make me a small circle and play right there, okay?
As we find our reserve here in the AOB division, I think as you study him, the young man's heifer comes back in. I think is a bit more reminiscent of the pattern I've been picking. We're going to go ahead and run with her. The young man who comes second out of that class is going to go ahead and run and be our reserve. Congratulations.
All right, you two, want to take us out?
Okay, so our next class will be English crossbow under 1 Brooklyn cough.
Just make me a small circle and sit right here.
Young lady's got a nice, sound, flexible, big rigged already at a young age, young bull calf. Again, comes in here and represents well. I tweaked a little bit of the way that hip lays in there just a little bit, but beyond that, a nice entry here to get this group fired up. Thank you.
Blue, I don't scream at you. You make the assumption.
make a big circle around it.
No. How many?
So our next class will be English crossover 1 year and under 2 years. Sophie Reeves.
A nice crossbred female here, one who's reminiscent of a world full of cows, right? This is what a cow looks like. For all of us who maybe get too focused on occasion about show steer this or levy that or falter this, that's what a cow is. So congratulations, and that's a huge compliment. Now, with that said, it should be a little flashier funded. Probably. Is she going to be the biggest boned animal we see today? No. Is she big-bodied? Is she moderate? Is she sound? Is she heavy muscle? Yep, she'll do those. It's a longevity-minded blue ribbon female right here. Give the young lady a nice hand, please.
So our next class is an English cross female, 2 years or older, Brooklyn Club.
Sophie, make sure you come back in.
Single entry again? Yeah. Small circle right here, right?
Dan Cal prospect here is working a little bit, but man, can you see the flexibility and the reach off of both ends? Really gets out and covers some ground with each step. Sound made, she's feminine fronted. Again, is she going to be a little harsher in terms of condition than some of the show heifers that we've seen? Yeah, she probably is, but she's good seated, good udder attachment, she's sound, she's moderate, she's feminine the way she's put together. Another really nice blue ribbon female on this cross.
Okay, so Brooklyn Cop, if you want to stay and just bring your calf in for the English cross cow-calf pair.
You just go up there by the cat. Just make him plant us right here in the middle, okay?
Again, a young cow's doing her job, right? Young cow is getting it done, and she's certainly concerned about what her calf's doing, and so appreciate the stress that the young lady had to go through. But again, you can see she's milking good, she's doing good. Young old calf is stomping and growing, as we talked about already. So a nice pair, certainly a blue ribbon pair here in this cross. Go ahead and let them out right there. Cow. Take a break.
She needs to stay.
Yeah, they're going to come back around. Because now we're on the overall.
Okay, so overall English cross female class, we'll have Sophie Reeves with her crossover 1 year and under 2 years, and then Brooklyn Cop with her English cross female 2 years and older, and her cow-calf pair.
You're just going to kind of make a big pass all the way around, okay? And then we'll end up head to tail and over here.
In this division, you've heard me talk cow a lot, and that's a huge compliment. The world's full of show heifers. Sometimes it's not as full of cows as it needs to be, and I think both of these females are totally different kind of animals. I think they bring that kind of style and that kind of substance, and so they're both moderate, big body, sound. One's cosmetically a little funny to look at up front. The other's a little stouter. So pick your poison. Ultimately, for me, in the champion and reserve spot here, it's going to come down to that thought process. How do you do that? So as a result, for me, we're going to settle in on the young lady's heifer here. Am I right? That's going to be our champion, and the pair together is going to be our reserve. Congratulations.
Okay, our next class will be any other cross heifer under 1 year, Tiana Bulls, and Harley Gilliard.
Stack them up, right?
Yeah, because I was doing this for last year.
What class is next?
After this one?
So it'll be one, but over 1 but under 2, but then what's after that?
After that is female 2 years old. And then we're doing all of the first place winners from the breed categories for overall breeding.
Bulls come and compete with fish.
Yep, so Brooklyn's House Bull, and Isabel's Bull, and Jackson's
But they're not with females, right? They're not with females, the bulls. They're separate. And then it'll be females. Thank you.
As we look at this particular heifer class, and clearly a couple Charolais influenced females, no question, I think when you study them, there's species you're going to admire in both, but I think it's just certain things are what they are. This heifer's going to win this class. She's a bit sounder, she's a bit more moderate, while still being ropey, she's bolder rib, she's heavier muscle, she's easy on the eyes, she wins this class. The female stands in second. No question, she's bigger scale. Always going to be a bigger female. And if you need that in your program, then that's what you're going to gravitate towards. For me, maybe gets a little too extreme in a couple categories. One, in terms of frame size. Two, maybe she's a little bit too upright in her rear pasture. I'd like to calm her down just a bit there, and maybe soften her up in her middle third. But a fun pair of heifers there to start in that class. Give those two ladies a nice hand, please.
So our next class will be any other cross heifer over 1 year and under 2 years. Amy Chilcote, Harley Gilliard, Isabel Gilliard, Ashton Knight, Brooklyn Ludeman, Ellie O'Neill, and Shelby Smith.
So she can. I'm gonna let you guys go by. Yep. Now Harley will come in last. Yeah.
Harley's already up here.
Well, she can just file in. You guys go and she'll file in.
We're coming this way, ladies.
It's what it is.
Hold still, young man.
Have fun. Meet you on the other side.
nice heifers. Take a couple heifers up that fence. There you go.
I got her.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a holding pin behind that door?
Well, Sally, why is those
Sir. Young lady. Ma'am. Ladies, do me a favor. This small group, stay on this side.
Fun class, and a class that I guess would give you opportunity to do whatever you want to do in this particular drive. Whatever kind scratches your itch, you will find in this class. And so that's a good thing. To me, I guess it really comes down to a decision of balancing some of the wants while getting the things we have to have. We have to, some of the needs. And so I think in terms of this quality, the top 4 females started to talk to you. The challenge is structure kind of sorts that down to a trio, and then you start studying the trio and going back and forth. Hoping I'm going to settle in here on the young lady's red female. Now, to pick on. The heifer starting to get just a nickel's worth closer for me in that rear third, and I think that's playing a little bit harsh on that rear step. She just doesn't have quite the flex that you'd like. But the challenge is the female behind her probably doesn't flex a lot better there, and so that gives her a pass. Clearly, she's highly presented, she's big body. Again, I think you melt some of the good feed job off of her, she'll get a little course for us. But today, she gets to weave through a pretty tough drive and win what I think is a really tough class. Congratulations. The young lady stands in second. Here's one I think has loads of promise. This kind of female that can make the next generation of calves better. She's stout-boned enough, rugged enough that you can go and make a stomping bull calf out of this thing. Or you can refine her up just a little bit and make a sleek, smoking, sweet female. Today in this class, again, you can clearly tell, this is a tough horse race for me on the top. As I study him, she's a little more swollen in her hocks, a little coarser in her hocks than her competitors around her. A tailhead that they like to me that I'd squash it down if I had my brothers. But again, I like just a moderate package. If she can clean those hocks and really track just a little cleaner, she probably wins this class. Female in third. Now she's one I think might sneak past a few folks, and I get that. She's not, by any stretch, one of the heavy muscle females in this class. In fact, her challenge is she needs more of that. But when we look at this, she's arguably the soundest built, she's not arguably anything. She's the soundest female in this class by some margin. She's the best jointed, the best footed, she's moderate, she's attractive from the side. Again, compositionally, she just needs to be better. She needs to have more muscle to go along with the fat that she has. If she does that, she rises higher in the class. As it is, we just don't. Now the heavy muscle heifer in this female in the class, heaviest muscle female in this class, by a lot, is in 4. And as a result, if you want that, hey, then this is the one you want. And I get it. She's bold, good, she's heavy muscled, she's extremely well presented, well shown. She's just too terminal for me. If this is a market heifer class, oh, she wins with a cut at the pin. As it is, she's just a little too round, a little too four-shouldered for me, and she wants to get outside of her body wall a little bit when she trusts away from me, so I would just tone her back a little bit. I think it would help her, but again, it's not lost on me what she is. Last two females, you can certainly go either way. You'll get no battle from this guy. To me, the female that's going to get the nod is just a touch more flexible up front. She reaches in her knee a little cleaner. That's what sorts the bottom pair. From class all the way through. Give those exhibitors a nice hand, please.
Okay, so we're going to have any other cross female, 2 years or older, Sienna bulls, and you can bring your cow-calf pair with any other cross Sienna bulls also with your calf.
Again, 2 classes here, the cow's round class, and then we have the pair. You've heard me talk about the heifer calf once already, and you know that I'm a fan of a lot of things that she does. As we look at the cow, you can see where a lot of that comes from. Yeah, super sound, super moderate. Yes, she's a young cow milking hard right now, so she's not as bloomed up as some of the other females that we've seen. But this is the kind of continental English cross kind of female that really gets out and gets it done and makes a calf that looks like that. You can't ask a lot more. So again, tremendous young cow, tremendous pair, really high caliber examples of both. Blue ribbon entries all the way around. Congratulations, ladies.
Yeah, just hang right there.
So Tiana Bowles, you can stay with your other cross female and calf, and then Harley Gilliard with her other cross heifer over 1 and under 2. Come back.
Isabel.
And Isabel Gilliard, be on deck with your any other cross heifer over 1 and under 2. For our final class, we'll be bringing out our breed champions. Our first place champions who will enter the ring to begin with are Ellie Mitty with her Angus heifer 1 to 2, Callie Rummel with her Maine Anjou 1 to 2, Isabel Gilliard with her Shorthorn heifer 1 to 2, Kaya Hendrickson with her Simmental heifer 1 to 2, Kaya Hendrickson with her AOB heifer 1 to 2, 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. 2. and the winner of this class will stay here. The people who need to be on deck for reserve champion breeding animal are Megan Evelo with her Angus cow over 2, Cassidy Bagnell with her Maine Anjou heifer under 1, Megan Evelo with her shorthorn cow 2 years or older, Bridger Smith with the AOB 1 to 2, Brooklyn Top with the English Cross cow calf pair, and the second place winner of this class.
Again, this is a tough heat. There's a lot in here. Again, the pair brings a load of good. You look at the caliber of the cow, the tremendous caliber of the calf, low select, big red female, came out of arguably the toughest top end of the class we've had. I think that's certainly a debatable point. And so I think you can go either way here. You're not going to get any trouble with me. Ultimately, it's the little things, mostly just in terms of putting it all together on show day with a little bit of the extra wow factor. Red female is going to be our champion in this particular group.
Come back in, Harold. Come back in.
Again, you might actually, I think you can make the point that there's more similarities actually now between the female that came in and the pair. I think they start to line up pretty well. So you can, again, make arguments. We can take wages on the outside. I think you can do either thing you want. Ultimately, I'm a big fan of the young heifer calf. I think she balances the pair. The pair is going to get the nod here, the reserve champion in this division. Congratulations.
Now that we move on to our Grand and Reserve breeding animal categories, coming into the show ring now, Ellie Mitty, Callie Rummel, Isabel Gilliard, Kaya Hendrickson with her Simmental heifer and her AOB heifer, Sophie Reeves, Harley Gilliard. Again, those of you to be on deck, Megan Evelo, Cassidy Bagnell, Megan Evelo again, Angus and Shorthorn, Bridger Smith, Brooklyn Top, and Tiana Bowles.
You like to get yourself too close to the kids. Don't make them miserable.
After this round of females, we'll move into our overall breeding bull class with Isabel Gilliard and Brooklyn Top.
Give us a little look at them. And lady, would you stand? Look at them. Not your fault. You just do what you felt was happening. Spin her that way. Push her away from you. She'll walk right in.
What we got here, and I think once we do, We see that for the most part, clearly we have some breed and some flavor differences, and so you're going to see cattle that don't look exactly the same. But in general, we've got some females who try to follow a basic mold relative to the classes and the divisions they came from. They give us some moderation, give us some guts, give us some maternal merit. Again, it's longevity. Then it's breeding merit, right? All the breeding merit in the world doesn't mean anything if you can't last. Then it goes to kind of the wow factor pieces, and in that order. If I don't think a female has a legitimate chance to make a female that can run the better part of a decade, it's probably not my type. I don't know about you, but I've noticed a lot of cows in today's world no longer last anywhere approaching a decade. I'm out on that. I think there are a lot of folks going broke while they're getting bigger checks because they forgot that the cow is the thing that's going to decide if they stay in this business or not. And so, longevity is most important. Then after that, how rowdy is she as a breeding piece? And then how cool is she beyond that? Then I think when we put those things in the hopper, all these females, again, relative to their groups, do a nice job. I could talk about 3 or 4, but in the sensitivity of time, I'm going to focus in on 2. The lady's female here right with me. I got it left. Arguably as good in the rear 2/3 of her body, certainly in the rear half, as anything we've seen. You recall as we talked earlier, again, is she the most attractive down in her chest floor? You peel off some of that, what's it do in terms of her four-rib look? You gotta ask yourself, do I think they're terrible situations? No. But I think her strength is that backpack. She drops into that mid-rib and that soft maternal flank. That bold hip, but a long, smooth maternal hip at the same time. I love the angle to her rear leg. I think she really hits a cool rear step, and she's mocked, and that speaks to her. I think she's a major player as we come out here and we try to find our champion. And then I want to see if something that's, oh no, a little different. Something that's arguably is different maybe as we have in this drive. That's the young lady here with her. Now, where are they the same? This female too drops into that midrib really good, carries back to a soft flank. They're similar in terms of maturity pattern. I think maybe as much as any 2 females out here. They're not too dumpy and too lit. They're not too extreme. They kind of hit that spot pretty well. Her advantage, clearly she's heavier muscle. There's just no debating that. And that's cool, but I don't think that's her biggest advantage. We got balls for that. I think her biggest advantage is in her front end. I think she certainly has less fat up front, and she's not devoid of fat either. She's a show heifer. She's polished up. But you read her over the top side of her shoulder, and as it blends into the base of her neck, she's just more feminine up front. I think her front step's actually a little funner to look at than her competitors. Now, her nemesis, ever so slightly, she gets just a smidgen more round from behind, and while she's 20 sounding up, she's probably not quite as authoritative nor as massive boned on her rear as her competitor on the other end of the platform. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how I see it. I think these are the 2 that at least speak to me relative to the champion spot. There are other quality females, and I don't mean to be rude to them. It's just a matter of, in the sensitivity of time, we'll just cut it down to those 2. And so you can go either way. You'll get no arguments from me. But as I went in my progression of things, they're both sound. I think they're both going to win. Probably be in totally different kind of breeding programs, I'd wager, but they both have the ability to last. I think they're both pretty cool breeding pieces. One might be slightly more unique than the other. And then it comes to the 3rd spot, and that's the wow. Nice pair, ladies. Appreciate it. Our champion right over here. Congratulations, young lady. Nice job. I can't even shake your hand, but I can tip my hat to you. Congratulations. Pull on out.
She's right there.
She's already in here.
This is the AOP.
That's an AOB. Oh yeah, the Simi's right there.
So Gregor Smith, with your AOB 1 to 2, please enter the ring.
They had to take this up for exam to so I don't know if it's back yet. I'm just coming.
Is he coming all the way around?
Yeah.
Yep. Mike, I'll tell you what, young lady, to keep you from getting banged up, I thought we'd take that effort and put it right up in the front, okay? That way you don't get lit up here in a moment.
Don't break it. Pick it up, buddy.
So they only bring in
Small circle, right by that gate, okay?
Young man's right effort comes in. Again, you recall sheet 2 has got some compliments in her own deal about being modern, big body. But I just think the logical thing here is don't put that Angus heifer away. Let's just go ahead and make her a reserve champion, shall we? Right here we go.
You all can go take a break. Congratulations. Pull her out here so at least everybody knows who's.
Where's Dale? Is Dale up there?
Forgive me. We'll save you be dragging these young guys all over the world. Just kind of set us up over here, okay?
You might have been up around the ring when these two came through earlier, if you weren't. Recollection, man, just a really quality short horn calf and a good Angus cross calf over here in the back. I think when you study all the things you just heard me say, I just think the short horn bull sets the standard higher than the other calf can jump over. The short horn bull is going to be our champion. The Angus cross calf is going to be our reserve. Congratulations, ladies.
Bring him in. We're ready. We are ready.
folks on the other end. Okay? Stop. Okay? Young lady, give me 3. You go right here. If she goes in, you go right next to her, okay? 5 blue.
As we work our way into our first class of steers, again, a couple classes here in the mini division, still, we're looking for compositional correctness. These cattle got to bring us the kind of in-product quality that we're going for. And I think we have a few different options here that you can choose from. And so if you heard me carry on a little bit with the heifers there towards the end, we talked about how we had to have a variety of things and they all had to come in one package. I think what happens is on the top end, we have 3 or 4 different options that we could work with if we were going to maybe overly emphasize this thing and ignore the other thing and vice versa. To me, as we try to balance it and piece it together, there becomes a calf who becomes the compromise choice. Now, I'm not going to try to convince you he's got as much muscle shape as the calf who stands in second, because he doesn't. He just doesn't. He doesn't have as much finish as the calf who stands in third. He just doesn't. But I think relative to class, he's adequate in both of those things and does it with just a touch more structural correctness than the calf in second and a bit more foot quality. He's a little bit more appropriate in terms of his toe shape and all that stuff right now than the calf in third, and probably does it with a touch more elevation than the calf in third. So, not necessarily the most of any one thing, it just comes to complete choice that I think works his way into winning this class. Again, if you want the first calf with a touch more muscle shape, then you're going to go to the young ladies here in sex. But for me, I might work a little bit more on it, just let him get out and float and flex just a little bit more when we set him in motion. That'd be my challenge. You can go ahead and work your way up. Young ladies calf in third. You just hang right there. You're right in the right spot. Right on cue. Here's a calf that done a great job putting that calf together in terms of balance, in terms of feed and fill. That calf is as strong top line and as level hipped as anything in class. Again, we hate to talk about things that may not seem like they matter a lot, but since we're coming in here to try to do all things we can, I might trim his toes up a little bit up front. It certainly, not only would it clean his feet up, but it actually would elevate him up just a little bit up front when you did that. And probably the bigger issue is he gets just a nickel's worth wasted compared to a couple calves higher than him. Coming into 4 and 5, you can go either way. To me, I guess what I see as a calf in 4 is there's just more pounds and there's just more oomph there. There's just more calf there right now, and that gives the darker calf the nod. Now, at the same time, young lady in the black mask, whoever thought we'd get into time in a row, and I'd have to say that. Young lady in the black mask, that calf probably has a little bit more base width, has a little bit more muscle shape. Just comes across as a little bit lighter to me, and that's why it stands there. Tough call, can go either way. Young lady, can you go to that gentleman right there? Swap hands for me, young lady. It'll work better, I promise. Most women don't listen to it anyway, it's fine. Trust me. I've got 30 years of practice, she has to listen to me. But I listen remarkably well. Please tell her. The Barbie, in the bonnet. And when we get down here to the 2 black calves, again, discussion that can go either way. I just think there's more muscle tone, there's more fat cover, there's more of the intangibles, and there's more of the substantive things, the serious things, all at the same time. I think that gives him the serious nod over the calf who's going to round out the class. And when the he's got a calf who's going to round out, it's probably the biggest frame calf in class, and I appreciate that. It also means this is probably the latest maturing calf in class, which can be a great thing, or it can be a challenge. In maybe some of the later classes, that might be a big thing. In this class, it actually means he's a little farther from being done, and it's a bit of a challenge for him. But he is the biggest and the most stretched out, and I recognize that. Ladies and gentlemen, give those exhibitors a nice hand for us, please.
You were busy working, so I just went to the boss. And I'll back you up. See, there you go.
Congratulations to Megan Evero for Class 1. Stay around for the championship class. Madison Evero be on deck. Class 2, weight ranges from 705 to 935 pounds. Bailey Smith, Colby Solomon, Riley Bagley, Anne-Marie Sowers, Brody Smith, Kaylee Turner, and Callie Rummel.
Put it straight facing the fence, but about 6 feet from the fence, okay? Oh, there's your ring, then he'll put you in the right spot. They stack right off the front.
Class 1 of full-size market beef, be ready. Lane Cooney, Abby Riska, Ash Bay Paul, Krista Lowenlorder, Bo Peterson, Kyla Roberts, Sadie Smith, and Kylie McLean. From our first class, Megan Evelo will enter the ring for the first round of Grand Champion Market Mini Beef. All the blue ribbons from Class 1 and Class 2 should be on deck to come in for our top 10 placing for the sale order.
So as we sort through this particular class, I think when we go from, say, second to fifth, maybe even all the way through the class, you can jumble some things up. You can do some different things, and we can have some really great arguments and discussions. And I'll concede, this can go different. That can't. That cat's going to win this class pretty much every single time. That doesn't mean he's perfect. Back leg needs to be better. Gets too outside of himself, his rear pasture's not quite right. He's a little too spongy to the touch. Okay? He needs to be able to trim it. And given that, he's going to win in the game. He's the calf. He brings some pounds, some performance, some product. He's attractive. Again, even despite his back leg, we got some other calves who have some structural issues as well. And oh, by the way, he does all those things and he's really easy on the eyes. He wins his class and does so pretty definitively. Coming into second, let me see if I can rationalize my way through the rest of this class. Second. This calf gets too clunky up front, gives up a lot of the cosmetics and some of the other calves, but when you touch this calf, it's got more top shape than a number of the steers in class. This calf's got more hip in it than a number of calves, and at the end of the day, that's what matters a little bit more than how pretty something is or isn't. So I think that's where the nod comes. Calf coming in third. Here's one that, in maybe a more traditional beef approach, gets pretty close to the mark. This calf's the trimmest in this class. That's a bit of a challenge because it means we're a little too far from being done. I mean, again, much like I talked about a calf in the last class, this is a later maturing calf who's testing. If we let this calf go, it'd probably go another 100 pounds before it was ready, right? Easy, maybe more. So this calf can get up there and get good, big product. Just not quite that. So I recognize the good in the calf and I keep it in the top three because of that. It would make a little more fat cover and a little more muscle to sneak up the rest of the way. Calf coming next. Clearly has more muscle shape in the calf than a couple calves in this class. And so I appreciate the added top. This calf is better on its rear wheels than the ultimate class winner. This calf gets a little bit more shape and muscle than a couple other calves. Challenge for me, this calf gets structurally a little bit rounder off clothing. So sound enough, but cosmetically is a little plainer to look at. And in a tough class, that becomes a little bit of a challenge. Young lady's got a calf. Another one looks like a calf a couple spots back. Reasonably trim, reasonably lean. That's a great thing in a lot of circumstances. Here it tells us maybe we're a little too far from our ultimate endpoint. We need a little more fat cover, a little more muscle, maybe as nicely balanced as any calf in class. Young lady's got us a black calf here directly in front of me. Clearly has more rib and muscle and fat cover than the calf in front of it. There's no debate in that. And if as a result you swap that pair, there'll be no argument from this guy. I will take that fight with you. I think it's a tough decision for me. And then the red calf who's going to round out the class. Again, this calf, again, has a little bit more fat cover and is a little closer to his endpoint than the other calf in class. And I recognize that. Again, it's another situation where if you want to move this calf up because of that, I have no problems with that. For me, I might like to work a little bit on his structure. He gets a little too open in his shoulder and up front, and then kind of narrows up a little bit behind. So I might like to work on those things a little bit. If we get that, it'd sneak him up a few spots. Ladies and gentlemen, a nice blue ribbon class. Give these kids a nice hand for me.
So this class is going to stay and we'll bring back with 5 blues from class 1. Jessica Heel, Madison Evelo, Cannon Peterson, Megan Evelo, and Alexis Pettit. So it's the top 10 placing.
So, what he was saying was that when he gets all the blues, he'll get the top one out of each class, or he's got 5 more classes.
Give me my class winner. Where's the class winner?
They're coming right now. Okay.
And we're putting the others over there.
Here they are, right?
Is that cool? Put the others. Are they coming in order? Bring them in order and just stick them there. That'd be awesome. You don't need to do that. You go right there.
So go over there and you
Yeah, just pull towards the fence.
where were you placing Walter? Choose. I'm in your way, you kick me or something.
Let's buy him a little more space. We're going to buy a little more space. Would you take the gas more or less space like you're going to try to run that gym? And then you're going to stack right next to it.
All right, again, we're bringing in the calves that are eligible for the top 10, but before we do that, we need to find a champion, and then a reserve champion. And so to me, I think what you get to looking at, as these classes come in, recognize what have we got. Got our 2 class winners over here, they're vying for the championship spot, and if you want to know who's eligible for reserve, clearly it's both of those, and these 2 calves right here, right? Do you agree? So that's the decision. As I look at the 4, I'll tell you, I really do think, as much as I appreciate some things over here, it probably becomes a decision between this calf and these 2, and the more I study it, to be honest, it probably stays over here. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, my champion reserve standing right here. Could you go either way? Yeah. Is this calf more correctly legged? There's no debate. Is this calf a little trimmer? No debate. Does this calf bring more product? There's no question. This calf brings more product. This calf brings a little more balance and a little more look. You go either way you want. I'll take no argument with you. Again, my hope is that even when we don't place them the same, we can evaluate them the same. And if we can get to that point, then we can have a good conversation about these. Ladies, nice job. You're packing our grand champion. You're packing our reserve. Nice job. Thank you. Our third overall, right here. Congratulations. Thank you very much. You want, once you got them, you open to exit, or you want to keep them up here? What do you got to do? Okay, would you go pull your, tell you what, take yourselves a little closer to the gate for me, and we'll line you up, okay? Cool. Anyway, thank you. Congratulations. Again, as we vie for fourth, I give a nod to the bit heavier, feathered, heavier white calf. It's going to be number 4 over there. 5, right here. Congratulations. Young lady, 6, 7. Make sure you two get in the right order, okay? Young lady, you stay right there for me. You hold still. Perfect. We're going to stay right there. I can see you. I'm on 8, right? 8. 9. And 10, right here. Congratulations. Give all your exhibitors a nice hand, boys, please.
Good job. Before we get to the next classroom. Those all become purple for the sale.
Yep, there's top 10.
Congratulations to our top 10 with Kaylee Remmel as grand and Megan Evelo for reserve.
I don't have my glasses on, so I'm guessing.
I went to borrow mine. I think you spelled your name wrong. It's K-N-E.
Yeah, I spelled David, so clearly. Nobody knows that's the real name, but it is.
You need a good social
What's the
security
date?
number.
Anybody know?
6.
Sounds good to me. Look at us go.
9:50 to 11:35.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir. It's a pretty attentive block, by the way. I'm impressed.
Second class, if you want to be ready, Brooklyn Ludeman, Edie Heddick, Dylan Brunner, Tiana Bowles, Keegan Turner, Harley Gilliard, Sawyer Regan, Colter McWilliams.
A fun class. Again, some basic observations. Essentially, all the cattle in here need more time on feed. They're reasonably lightweight. Even one or two calves, you kind of get into a weight range that's tolerable. They themselves biologically need more time on feed to get more fat cover, to have some comfort, maybe going up there and reaching that choice grade. Would I wager the farm that anything in here is going to rate grade choice? No, I just wouldn't. Do I expect that some will? Yeah, some probably will. They'll surprise us. They've been eating good diets, but I don't think some of the external indicators give you great confidence that they're quite there. Everything here needs a little bit more time on feed. I think really we have a group of 4 or 5 or so to become more of the decision makers in this class. And when you put everything in the hopper and you shake it about, you pick out really what makes the most sense for me. I think that top pair is pretty challenging, and I can go back and forth. I'm a little twisted up on which way is necessarily the most appropriate. For what I settled in on is the calf that I think just has more product. This calf has the best handle of any steering class, meaning in terms of fat fat. Really quite good for a lightweight steer, pretty impressive. So you've done a nice job getting, again, is it enough? I don't know. It's the best by some margin. You combine that with the fact that this calf balances up pretty good, that really gives a red steer a real run. But to me, as I read them, here's what I see. I see the red calf is still pretty close in terms of fat cover. I think the red calf's not only stouter featured, but more importantly, when you get your hands on them, there's a little more tongue of muscle up high. There's a little more shape in that point edge. I just think there's a little bit more muscle mass in that calf. I actually like the rib design a little bit better. I think he's a little more replicatable as a feedlot steer. That's what it comes down to. But again, it's a close call. And if you want to go the other way, you'll get no argument from me. I think that's a nice pick. Again, we'll go ahead and let her rest. Head on out. Again, the lady with the black calf, tip of the hat to you. Nice job. We have a little more shot of power in that calf. Muscle meaning muscle mass. We probably think that calf here. You can go ahead. The shorthorn calf. It's eerily similar to the black calf in terms of handle, in terms of basic build, and basic kind and soundness, just does it while being a little bit lighter muscle. And so there's the struggle. That calf gets a little bit drawn up in its flank and needs a little bit more pop to its stifle and lower quarter, but that's a nice calf, and you've done a really good job with that one, and I appreciate it. You can go ahead and take a break. Coming up next, the white-legged calf. Here's one that from the side, love this calf from the side. This is what a good looking steer looks like. He's got all the pieces you want in the feedlot steer, and oh, he's pretty to look at. That's awesome. This calf is fun and fun for me to evaluate. He's just farther from being finished than anything else in the top end of the class. And at the end of the day, it's a market steer show, not a prospect show, and that's a problem for us. But that's quality cattle right there in that spot. We just need more fat cover over the rib. And that calf can go, I can't even shake your hand, take your business. They go and take me out to the woodshed and beat me. That lady coming up next. Now, if you want the most of something, you probably come here. The biggest hit calf in this class, and it's not really even close, belongs to the young lady in this spot. And I realize there's a lot of folks who are going to say, Judge, there's a big strapping calf right there, and there is. And as a result, somebody else might drag into that calf. He's got a monster fill on, and that's the best muscle indicator as you bring him all the way back, and it just keeps going. Problem for me is he's pretty green yet. He's pretty harsh yet, he's pretty dry in his flank. You can move it expected down in his weight, but he's one of the big calves in class. He probably needs another couple hundred pounds. If we did that, now all of a sudden, that power, that cuttability is awesome, but anybody who's self-back cattle really, most recently, they know the cuttability premium is like this much, that quality gate premium is like that much. And so we got to hold that against him a little bit, but it's not lost on me how much power he's putting in this calf. Young lady coming up now has one that probably has as much cover as anything in the drop. Probably doesn't handle quite as fun as the calf we talked about in a second, but does have some cover, a calf with pretty big body. To me, I just need to put more power on the back end of this calf. It's too narrow hips, too narrow pins, and too flat quartered for me. That's the challenge. The next calf, cool to look at. Really good line, cool legged, cool bone, got a lot of hair, just really, really green. Needs a lot of fat cover, a lot of days on feed to have a chance to grade. That's his problem. It's not quality, quality's there. He's a long ways from being unfinished here right now. And then the calf who's going to round out the class, here's one that probably does have a little more fat cover. Not a lot, but a little more than 2 or 3 calves in class. structure-wise gets a little bit off, a little bit steeper in terms of his hips, a little plainer front end, a little plainer muscle. But a fun class from top to bottom. Would you give those exhibitors a nice hand for us, please?
So the top 6 exhibitors from Class 1 need to stick around for the championship round. Class 2, weight ranges from 1140 to 1220. Brooklyn Ludeman, Edie Pettit, Dylan Brunner, Tiana Bowles, Tegan Turner, Harley Gilliard, Sawyer Regan, Coulter McGoya.
Young lady, right over here, on this side of him, okay? Yeah, give me a spot. Give him a big, okay?
1140 to 1220.
Thank you. Pull forward, please. All right, young lady. Let's work magic. Young lady. Sir. Young lady.
Yeah, you usually get that.
I mean, the thing is, you can't. So I think anything
Class winner here. Again, some puzzles are hard. I am just a hillbilly from the Midwest, and so I can make things hard. This is. This calf wins this class, and it really doesn't matter who's on the microphone. He's going to win this class every day. We're still on the right side of our ideal market range, just truth. But still, our job is to bring in a market cap. This is a market cap. It looks like a market cap, it shapes like a market cap, and it reasonably feels like a market cap. He can still handle a little more cover, clearly. But he's, by some margin, the most appropriate blend of feedlot fundamentals. The soundness, with the appropriate turn to his top, the shape of his hip. This kind of calf who's going to cut well, and if he can graze, he's going to do some really good things. You know, by the way, he looks like a pretty high-end shakespeare to boot. When you can squash all those things into a package, I'm pretty simple, but even I can figure those things out. Calf wins pretty easy. Calf is second. Now here's one, if I can put 200 pounds on this calf, he's going to get this calf up real over the run for his money. The deal is, this calf has a lot of similar qualities. Great quick power, good bone, good muscle, all those things. Deep enough, balances up well enough. He's just a long ways from being done right now, right? And so that's his challenge. And so he's fortunate because in certain class dynamics, I might have pushed him a little farther down because he's pretty green yet. I mean, he's select maybe. And so, again, those of you who are selling cattle, you know the dollars that implicates. But in this class where a bunch of cattle are pretty green, gives him a little latitude in here, and I recognize his quality as a, you know, again, this is a prospect class, you can go a little bit lower. That class is just not quite done, but I really like the 3 pieces, so you can let him run. Calves in 3 and 4. Now, these are just real world feedlot cattle, and you appreciate that. They're what pay my bills, and I like that. Both of these are big body, deep rich kind of cattle, just put it in they're just ample in terms of muscle. Either one of them just really blows you away in terms of power. But we're at the world, in the beef world, they're okay. Both of them, more importantly, the third calf is a little too green, but has a little more shape of muscle. The fourth calf has a little more fat pepper, has a little plainer muscle. That's the trade-off. The red calf. The red calf starts a string of about 4 calves who have different levels of cool factor to them, of course. but they're just too green for me. They need more time on feed. Great calf, long hip, long spine, kind of calf. He's a great feedlot animal. He was just designed to weigh 1,500 pounds, and he's just not there just yet. When he gets to that point, he'll be impressive. Calf who comes next. Long and level, cool line, he balances up good for the young man. He just maybe becomes one of the lighter muscle skiers in class. He too's pretty tied up in his flank. He probably has more fat coverage than the other calves in the bottom of the class, and I give him that. The young lady that's going to stand in there behind him, that calf is probably a little more moderate in size than the calf on both side of him, and that's good. Again, just needs more muscle and fat. And then the calf who's going to round out the class, he's better lined than the steer directly in front of him, and square in terms of his hip. He's just a bit too extreme in terms of frame size for me, and as a result, he's meant to be a big steer before he's done, and he's just not there yet. Ladies and gentlemen, would you give that group of young people a nice hand for us, please?
So the top two from each class, Kyla Roberts, Ashley Hall, Kiana Bowles, and Harley Billiard need to stick around for the end round. We'll go into class 3, weight ranges from 1230 to 1260. Bridger Smith, Ashlyn Knive, Logan Turner, Danielle Sexton, Kendall O'Neill, Max Andrews, Eli O'Neill, and Isabel Gilliard. Class 4, if you want to be ready. Trevor Zimmerman, Braden Cox, Colin Cox, Cassie Miller, Claire Stanley, Joylyn Glidewell, Wes Brown, and Shelby Smith.
Fun trio here up on the top. But when you start to factor in some soundness components, it really just comes down to two. And again, I'm not going to tell you which one has to win. If you prefer into the shark cap, I understand it. I understand why. It's not lost on them. And the ultimate class winner does have some chinks in the armor, as it were, right? This cap, to me, they've done a nice job on the feet. I'd still argue on his rear feet, he wants to get too heavy on his outside tail on both sides. Does it mean much? I don't know, but it's my job to know this, so that's my job. Does he have quite the same level of back cover as the smoke? No, but actually I think in this case, for the first time in a class, that's an advantage. I think this cap actually handles pretty good for a show steer. I think he's got some cover. I think maybe he's a little thinner than his counterpart, and I think that's his advantage. But ultimately, frankly, what it comes down to is philosophy. This is not a check the box lesson. This is what are you in on and what are you out on. I personally just, similar to the heifers that we walk, I want animals to have a touch of stretch, a touch of elevation. Not too much, they still got to be moderate, but they got to bring their skeleton, they got to be gathered, they got to come together. And I think this calf, does he have more muscle or less? I don't know, and I don't really care, to be frank. I just don't think it's relevant. I think they both got more than enough muscle than anybody needs when they go to a grocery store in Missoula, Bozeman, or New York. They both got ample muscle. It's not about that anymore. I think they both got a pretty good chance to trade. I just think he's trimmer. I just like his skeleton design better, even though I would tweak that rear toe just a little bit. Again, if you're on the smoke, the shark cap, I get it. Man, he's as wide as it's struck, huge rib, just a massive kind of cat. My way of thinking, maybe just a smidgen too compact personally for this particular judge. And he's starting to get a little bit pudgy to the touch for a show steer, getting a little bit spongy. So I might trim him up a little bit. I might give that front end back just a little bit. The Blue Roan, when standing still, this is a 3-horse race. When you put him in motion, that goes away. And she knows this. She knows this calf a lot better than I'll ever know it. The rear step's just not quite good at it. This calf gets pretty short and choppy in that rear step. And I can't tell you, I can identify why. It doesn't seem to be an obvious major structural issue. But this calf just doesn't want to flex off out of that hip from behind. And so looks the part a lot. Just not sound enough for me. Calf's going to stand in 4. 4 and 5, you saw I did a little bit of updating, so forgive me, I make mistakes, I got to fix things on occasion. I think 4 and 5 are similar. I think the calf in 4 has just a touch more cover, and that's an advantage. Calf in 5 has a touch more muscle, that's a little greener. That's the way I read it. Going down to 6, and then you keep on motor, going down to 6. Calf, again, I love the rib in the body in this calf, just needs more rear quarter. Now, we do that, he probably gets to stay where he was. Got her behind that, the big old rosy calf, he's bigger hips than the calf in front of him. It's just probably the greenest steer in class. He just needs more time on feet. He was probably destined to be a 1,500-pound calf as opposed to in this class. And a similar conversation for the big calf. The big calf went in, and there's a load of good in him. It just needs, a couple more months on feet to really get to his, at least a month and a half on his ideal endpoint, and we probably just don't have that time left today. Ladies and gentlemen, give those exhibitors a nice hand for us, please.
So Ashton Knight and Isabel Gilliard stick around for the end class.